Welcome to the Moments That Matter podcast. I am your host, Laura Escamilla.
And I am your co-host, Isaac Escamilla.
And today we have two new guests with us. We have Peter-James Ehimika and Fernando Chapa. Peter-James is with UT System and Fernando is with South Texas College. They're going to talk to us a little bit today about how to help students and parents successfully work through going from a community college to a 4-year university and how to do that transfer successfully and the do's and don'ts of that. And we'll talk about their experience with that. So Peter-James, could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm Peter-James Ehimika. I'm the Director of Student Success Initiatives at UT Rio Grande Valley. So I work very closely with our different campus partners, students, faculty, administrators, just to ensure that students make timely progress toward graduation and always find pathways to be able to move forward.
For completion.
Yes.
Yeah. And Fernando, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Laura. So I'm Fernando Chapa. I'm at South Texas College. I oversee various aspects of the college. Most of the stuff isn't things you typically think of when you think of working at a college, but I do a lot of the behind the scenes work for like accreditation, the institutional research. I run the numbers and see how we're doing with transfer rates and completion rates. And so we use that for institutional improvement, decision making, and then also for compliance. I now oversee the strategic plan. And me and Peter-James started working with a big group and we'll get into that, I'm sure, with the questions, but with UTRGV and STC, I met Peter-James because we were part of a work group that looked at specifically data and the transfer rates between our two institutions. And then there was several groups a part of that. So me and Peter-James have been working together for 4 years already?
Just about.
Yeah.
That's awesome information. So for myself with the scholarship, for Star Scholarship Fund, we have a partnership with STC, we have a partnership with UTRGV, and then you go to Corpus and we have Del Mar and A&M Corpus Christi and Laredo College and A&M Internationals. From my side, from the scholarship side, I see students a lot. Every year they apply, and this year they were at the community college, the next year they're at the university. So this is a very common pathway for students. There's various reasons students choose this pathway. Sometimes it's that they started the process in high school and just want to finish their associates and go that route. But what I wanted to do is talk about the current challenges with doing this. I know just recently when I approached Fernando about this was that an article had come out discussing the challenges of this and the success rate for students transferring. Talk a little bit about what the challenges have been for this process through your experience.
For the transfer process.
Yes.
Specifically for the transfer process, what we see at our institution is when we look at the success rates of our students and the transfer rates, the STC is open access. And so we're purposely trying to get students that would not have that opportunity into the pipeline. So with that, we'll get a lot of part-time students, a lot of working adults, a lot of students that are not deemed college ready. So when they do come in the doors, some of those challenges are having them understand what it takes to be successful, and then also giving them the support services to get to that level. Another big challenge, I think, is the holistic supports. And I think this is going to go across both our institutions, right? We serve the same population for the most part. The holistic supports, students come to our college because most of the time it's open access. It's a little bit cheaper. They're a little more flexible with the scheduling and with smaller student to faculty ratios and stuff like that. So with that, there presents challenges in how they approach college, how they think about college, and then how they transfer to college. So one of the things that we try to do at the college is really direct a large proportion of our resources towards student services. So we're different from universities that we don't necessarily have research, right? So we don't direct funds towards innovative research for the most part, right? There are some faculty that do that type of stuff, but we take that money and we take those resources and we direct them more towards the support, the holistic support for students to bridge that gap. With that, those are some of the challenges. And as far as the transfer rate, knowing when to transfer is another critical key. We see students that if they want to get into a nursing program, for example, competitive, our nursing and health programs are the competitive ones. Sometimes they stay at the college too long and they should really think about transferring, or they transfer too soon too. What we see in the data is sometimes students that transfer after a semester, like 10 hours, credit hours, they're not as successful as the ones that get 30 credit hours or more.
Oh, interesting. We see a lot of students, and I know students who have been at the community college for a long time. And you're wondering what the plan is
What's the
here.
goal? Yeah.
What is the end goal?
Yeah.
Because although South Texas College does offer a 4-year bachelor's programs, some of these students, that's not quite what they're getting. They're getting associates and then another associates and another associates. And being a mom who has two college students, my first thought is, why are they not going to a 4-year university? What are you wasting your time for and your money, right? Your financial aid or whatever is going to get capped because that happens for me on my end. I'm with the scholarship and very embedded in the financial aid side. I know that you can only get financial aid for 6 years and you're going to use all of your financial aid
Yeah.
at a community college instead of completing a program somewhere. Because as mentioned, STC doesn't have every bachelor's program.
We have 5. We have Bachelor of Science in Nursing, Computers, Operations Management, and Organizational Leadership. So they're very specific and they're very targeted, and they're also more on the workforce too. So even though
Right.
their bachelor's are applied sciences, they're not the typical psychology that could easily transfer to a master's degree if that's what you
Mhm.
wanted. Even though we do have those opportunities that are also very distinct from a 4-year traditional bachelor's degree.
Peter-James, what initiatives or strategies have been implemented through UTRGV, the UT system, to support these students that are transferring?
So the UT system has put together a transfer advisory group, which is comprised of leaders from across the institutions
Mhm.
throughout the UT system. And so there are some student success folks on there, academic affairs people, and these this group comes together and convenes to really help work through challenges and to look at the legislation that's happening that's surrounding transfer. And really, the goal of the group is to ensure that students are able to get credits when they transfer their credits from one place to the next, that those
Mhm.
credits count and that they're able to make progress toward completing a degree. Because I think many of the students come in, they're transferring from one institution to the next. Their goal is to finish, right? And be able to get that credential, move forward with that degree. And this group helps make that process easier.
And as you mentioned, there's different reasons why students choose this. A lot of the times on our end, I hold presentations to parents and students all the time, high school seniors or juniors going into the school. And a lot of the stuff that they ask is, what if I don't know what I want to study, right? But I do want to go to college. So I do advise start at a community college. Don't invest your money at a university. Don't go away if you don't know
Right.
what you're going to
Mm.
do. Figure it out, get your basics, get all that stuff out of the way. I think that's one avenue. And then there's the other reason is that parents can't or won't financially support their children through college and they can afford a community college. They can figure out ways to pay for a community college and get financial aid and do these things to cover that because there's a big difference in cost, a 4-year to a community college. So those are some of the reasons they make the decision, right? So what would you say are biggest misconceptions about that, about what happens with at a community college versus a university?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, first of all, is that not all degrees are intended to transfer. There's viable options. You can develop lucrative, illustrious careers with the trade, right? That'd be HVAC or welding, culinary, law enforcement. So that's the first thing. Sometimes a student just wants that 2-year degree and they can get employed with that. So I think that's the first misconception. And I think the second one is that the mission of, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier, how we appropriate funds and resources and stuff like that, and what we're built around. The mission of the college is different. It's not just, I know we used to call them junior colleges, right? And I really don't really like that term because it's much, oh, you're a little university. You'll get to a big university one day, and now you're a little one. But really, the way that they service their students are different, and the model that they implement is different. One of the big areas, too, is if you're not at that time college ready when you graduate, and we've seen this happen with the pandemic, right? There was 2 things that happened. One of them, students lost a whole year of learning. And the other thing that happened was they changed the college requirements for the testing, right? So a lot of students were not college ready. So what STC can do at that point, we have, I think, those types of students, if you come in and you're presently struggling with math, and I'm very intentional about saying presently struggling because I have a lot of students say, oh, I'm not good at math. It's like, no, you're presently struggling with it and come to STC and we'll help you
I
get
like
where you
that.
need to get.
I like that.
And so I think that service model is, and you said, I think the other things are like not knowing if what you want to do. And then also the cost, of course, is a big one.
So going off of what you're talking about, the pros and cons, right? So the pros would be if you don't know what you're going, this is an opportunity to figure out and get adjusted to college with that. And what would you say going Peter-James from a 4-year, would there be any students that you would not recommend do this? Maybe there's some majors that this isn't the most beneficial, way for you to get into a specific program. I know, for example, our son is a business major And in order for him to get into officially be a business, part of the business school at his university, he has to take specific classes there.
Yes.
So for him, starting at a community college wouldn't have necessarily been the best choice for him because he had to be at that school for those classes. For example, math, right? His first math had to be business calculus. It wasn't college algebra. It wasn't any of those things. So he would have been wasting time and money going that
Yes.
route. So would you say that there are situations when it doesn't call for this, for a transfer situation?
Yeah.
Both ways, right?
There are some programs of study that just make sense to start and complete altogether at one institution. And I know that sometimes we have students who will want to go to one institution and take courses and then transfer to another institution. But when students have a good idea, and it's not always the case, it's really
Right.
difficult for them to sometimes know what they want to do when they're still in high
And I
school.
would say, just from my experience, majority don't. No, I think
Nah,
it's a very small percentage that have it figured out.
very small.
Mm.
And some think they know, and then
Yeah.
they take some core courses and say, "Hey, I have an aptitude for this, and I didn't
Mhm.
even realize it. Now I want to
Mhm.
explore that further." But we have some students who will start at one institution and they want to transfer to another institution, but they may not realize how the program of study at that other institution is set up. And some of them are arranged to where they should start from their very first semester taking particular specific courses. And if those courses aren't offered at the previous institution or the institution they're at, they may wind up becoming delayed
Yeah.
when it comes to
Or
graduating or just
working
getting
twice
behind.
as working twice as
Yeah.
hard because you're putting in your effort at one university and then you have to do it all over again essentially somewhere else, but also I think you made a really good point that right now a lot of schools, high schools, and talking, because off air you mentioned the number of high school seniors going on to college has decreased
Yeah.
over the years. Data has shown, and probably because of COVID, maybe I would assume. And we've experienced that a lot too with our son is in a second year of college. His friends, like the number of students that didn't go to college was very surprising to us. The number of his friends who didn't go that route. But pointing out that yes, there is trade services that the community college offers. He does have a friend getting his HVAC, right?
Yes.
So when they say college is not for everyone, but a skill is
Yes.
for everyone,
Absolutely.
right? So a pro for that, it is necessary for everyone to learn a skill that you can get a job with. So would any other pros and cons that you can elaborate on?
Can I ask a question about the amount of time that you spend, for example, at STC versus UTRGV, right? And you talked about how some students don't find a lot of success if they jump to a 4-year too early. Is there like a threshold, like a general rule? Would you recommend stay at least 15 hours or stay at least 30 hours until we know you have a good, going back to what you said earlier, Fernando, foundation and understanding what this system is all about and how to become college ready, or at least college proficient?
Yeah. So there's two things. One of them, the data that Peter and James have collected, our institutions have combined on. We looked at the success rates for when students transfer their first term at the receiving institution, being UTRGV, and what we found is that it was at 30 credit hours. That seems to be the sweet spot. They do well overall. They do as well or better than UTRGV natives, if you will. But we found that 30 hours is where you see the biggest increases. We haven't looked at the associate degree earners, which there's a report out by, I don't know if that's what you were referencing earlier, the
Mhm.
CCRC,
Mm.
that looked at this and they saw, and overall nationally, I think they saw getting the associates was where they saw that benefit. But locally with UTRGV and us, we're seeing about 30 credit hours. So in terms of what that means for students and parents, that's about a year if you go full time. So I think that's probably the good area. And you got to think about it as a dosage. I think about it like when you take a medicine. If you get an antibiotic, take it 7 days. Don't do it 5. You're not going to get the benefit, right?
Yeah.
I think about it the same way. You have to think about what does it mean and how does it get operationalized with how much of the community college, how long should you go and how long should you stay there? So that's what I think I've seen. But I think one of the benefits that we have in our area at Hidalgo Stark County, we're not ACC. We're not feeding 10, 15 universities. We're feeding primarily one, right? Most of our students go to UTRGV and a big proportion of their transfers come from STC. So we're in a very good spot to where we can, and we have been having these one-on-one conversations between program chairs, and we look at the curriculum and we make sure that we have a 2+2 as much as possible. And we actually have a UTRGV, she's a counselor that's employed, that works at our campus, right? She's a transfer counselor, I think. So that means that students can take their degree plans and go talk to this person and they can get both kind of the co-guidance, if you will. And also a huge misconception, but back to your earlier question, is the transfer process. Students can be co-enrolled at two institutions and also do reverse transfers. So they go there, they may fail out of UTRGV, say, I'd like to back over there, and they go back. Not too long, but
Yeah.
we come back for another semester, or maybe they do really need the help with math and they just want to take their math here. And that's another area, I think, a misconception that it's not one and done. And we actually also have developed an MOU with UTRGV, a memorandum of understanding, where students are co-enrolled. So they're co-admitted. When they apply to one, they can get admitted to both institutions, so they can easily take a few courses at STC while they're working towards their degree at UTRGV. One of the majors where this is particularly helpful is with engineering, and there's a few others. Engineering is very complicated because they have a lot of engineering courses. I think it's still 5 years, right? I think
Some students are able to shove it into 4 years. It'll really depend on what they've
The
taken for
student.
dual enrollment and if
Yeah.
they've taken courses that count toward the degree plan. And that's really important. I think sometimes when they go in there with a strategy, if you're planning on transferring to another institution, to say, okay, I'm going to study this right now, but I'm going to make sure that I've looked at the degree plan for this receiving institution. And I see which courses I need to take here that are going to apply over there. And then
And
they can ensure.
Is something the student can figure out themselves with looking at the website, or is that something they need to go get the advice of the community college or the university to figure that out? Is that something they can figure out on their own? Because I'm sure they're like, oh, I checked the website, it's fine. I get that. Our son took a class at the community college over the summer, and I'm like, are you sure it transfers back? Are you sure that? And it did, but that was the response. Like, I checked online, it's fine. But can they really figure this out if just with the information that's available to them on the website? Or
Sometimes they can get a good.
Yeah.
So if they
for
go to
students, it's hard to tell,
Yeah.
right? They should be able to, but
They-
do they? Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure the information is there, right? Because they can see a
Yeah.
degree plan and
But
kind of.
the Texas Common Course Numbering
Yeah.
System, they can
Yeah.
go on to the universities, for instance, UTRGV, you can go on to the website and you can see the transfer course equivalency guide
Yeah.
and say, okay, these courses are equivalent to the ones I've already taken. Sometimes degree plans can be a little bit tricky for students who aren't familiar with them. And that's where, of course, academic advising comes in when they're getting ready to apply and going to those orientations and making sure that they're getting the right information really from the horse's mouth.
I got you.
Yeah.
Do you guys provide any sort of vertical alignment cross institution guide that says if your end result is this and you begin at this other institution, this is a viable path, or this is a variety of viable paths to completion?
Yeah, some articulation agreements exist. So
Okay.
students can look at that and say, okay, this is my goal. So start with these courses, transfer them over, and finish off with these ones.
Great. Do
Right.
those plans change often, or are they pretty set in stone? Or maybe how often are they revisited?
So they tend to have a lifespan,
Sure.
and then they'll get revisited, but they tend to last a
I
little
guess
while.
Okay.
the first thing that comes to mind as we're talking about this is, for example, the nursing program. That STC has a great nursing program, but UTRGV also has a great nursing program, but it's not the RN, right? The BSN, or is that correct?
Yeah,
The
one's ADN and the other one's the
Or
bachelor's
BSN.
science. Yeah.
So is that a field that happens with if they go and they complete at STC and then they go finish that off at UTRGV?
I think UTRGV has one, but that's not typically the way they work, from what I understand. I believe that the ADN, because they're going to be employed as a nurse when they finish, right? So there's the option for them, I think, to have some of the courses transferred over. But that was one of the reasons that we developed our Bachelor of Science in Nursing, to be accommodating to those students that did want to get that bachelor's in nursing,
so that they had it all
Yeah.
available where they started.
Yeah, they have it all available where they started. We have the two different tracks at the college are the transfer track programs. And as Peter-James was mentioning, there's Texas Common Course Numbering System. So with that, there's an inventory of courses that the state puts out that all public institutions in the state of Texas have to follow. So the course inventory have to be the same, right? English 1301 has to be English 1301. But when we move to the applied science, which are the nursing, allied health, welding, and law enforcement, they don't fall under the same guidelines. So they're not transferable courses. Would an institution accept them or substitute them? Maybe, but it's not guaranteed the way the transfer track program are. And our ADN program is an applied science, so it's a non-transfer track program. It's a workforce program.
The program at UTRGV is probably one of those programs that's best to start there and there.
We have a couple of different tracks. So you can start, for instance, nursing, you can start as a brand new student and you can follow that all the way through. You can start with an associate's degree in nursing and transfer that into our pathway program.
Mhm.
So we have one for students who have an associate degree but would like to, or an ADN, and would like to move toward an RN,
Yeah.
BSN. And sometimes that's the case because they say, you know what, I would like to, yes, I'm a nurse, but I'd like to move up in the field, or I'd like to get my master's and
Mhm.
do something else within the field of nursing,
Yeah.
move up in that field. And they're allowed to make that
To
transfer
that
in this
shift.
program. Yeah, it's a
And
specific
you were
program.
mentioning, you started talking about the engineering program. So do you want to?
Engineering is unique because sometimes it's a 5-year degree, but what we run into is the fact that the courses at the field of study, which are your upper division
Mhm.
courses, are very hard and very time intensive. So what happens with students, if they get their 2 years basics here and they're left with a huge schedule and it's going to be very time intensive. So we try to do the co-enrollment where if you're going to do green do engineering, it's best to co-enroll at both institutions.
So that you're doing a few here, a
You
few
see
there.
there, right? So you take an engineering course, a math course, very intensive, and then you take your English and other courses at the
So
community
that
college.
it is more rounded schedule for them.
Right. So
Okay.
they're not at the end bombarded with a very difficult schedule.
Prerequisites, that's another thing to just
Yes.
really keep an eye on for students to look at. If I'm going to be taking these engineering courses, what's the math sequence that I should have completed? So which math should I have ready by the time I enter the university?
The prerequisites are always difficult. Like you said, sometimes they'll have their specific math for that specific program.
Right.
So business may require a different math than the college, what they deem is their entry-level math course. So those are things to be mindful of. And then also how near the institution that you want to go. And if it's a public institution, state institution, there's like Baylor has a articulation agreement with STC. There's more and more private schools coming on and developing the articulation agreements, but it's just harder to update them and keep them current. But that's to say that there's a lot more that are doing that, developing the articulation agreement and stuff like that. So it's possible. The information's there. You have the degree plan for a transfer track institution the first 2 years. It should fit into the 4-year degree with a few exceptions like prerequisite and stuff like that. But with our working group with the UTRGV and STC, again, we've looked at each of the programs and we've tried to pinpoint how and make sure that some of those electives, sometimes some electives may not be the electives that the program's requiring, but our program is. So we try to really iron out all those things that could make a student lose some credit hours. That is one of the biggest cons of the transfer, but it's stuff that the institutions are aware of and they try to resolve. And again, you have the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board that's trying to create regulations, stuff like that to ease that process.
I think what we've established is the type of student. There's a couple of different options. For one, the student who may need additional help focusing on a specific subject matter, they should try to go to a community college where they can focus on them a little more. It's not so large. There's more one-on-one assistance with the ratio of the professor and the students. If a student doesn't know what they want to study, what track they're going on, community college to 4-year would be a great track for them to figure out what that is. And then I haven't mentioned before, but as you're speaking, I thought of a student that went this track because she didn't do well in high school. She didn't apply herself. Not that she wasn't capable, she just didn't. So when she got ready her senior year, excuse me, to apply to a 4-year that she wanted to go to, she didn't have the grade necessary to get in to that school. So she went to community college for 1 year and got all her A's and got everything racked up so she could transfer properly to the school because she didn't plan in high school. And a lot of students don't, right? Or it's too late by the time, which is the point of our podcast is we talk to parents about, you need to know this by junior year. Like senior year is not really the time to be figuring this out. Like you have to have it. And most kids don't, as we already established. So there's a couple of different reasons to go this route. And then of course, financial reasons and that nature. But is there any other advice we could give parents checking the degree plan, making sure that those hours are any hours they have are going to transfer what they're working towards? How else can we guide parents to help their student transition from a community college to university? What are we looking out for to make sure it's not too soon or too late? Or what advice would you give to a parent?
I would think the primary thing is make sure your student's successful in the courses they're taking when they're there at the community college. There's no sense in moving if you haven't developed that, get into the rhythm of school, right? Because like you said earlier, there may be, and there's a lot of great success stories for community colleges, and Isaac will be happy. George Lucas, I don't know if you knew, George Lucas started off at a community college.
Well,
I did.
Isaac went from a community college.
I did.
to
Well, I went a little bit here.
a little
UTPA,
university, a little community college,
and
a
then
little.
when I moved to Austin, I went to ACC, and I was at ACC for a little while. I did really well at ACC, and then I was going to transfer to Texas, but I'm not extraordinary. I didn't have a special skill. I'm not an athlete, and I was a poor musician. So I went to Southwest Texas, now Texas State. They took me right away. Yeah.
So there's lots of success stories, and I think going back to what you said, I'm a student that didn't go to community college, but I probably should have because I failed out of at the time UTPA 3 times, and then eventually I was like, something has to give, right? I'm gonna try one more time, and I
Right.
eventually got it.
And audience, this is Dr. Fernando Chapa speaking.
A success story I should have gone.
Yes.
But I think so. It goes back to your current state, not it's a stepping stone to what you want to accomplish. And it's not a small university. It's a robust environment for you to learn and to get you where you want to go. And
Right.
so I think that as long as you keep that in mind and you make sure that when the student's there, they take advantage of the resources that are offered at community colleges, whether that be advising, tutoring, supplemental instruction, where the tutor's inside the classroom. And then, like you were saying about the transfer, make sure it's going to transfer. We have transfer counselors at the college that you can make those, you can look at 101 based on the college that you want to go to. And then I think the last thing you mentioned is don't get more than an associate's if you don't want to go to the specific bachelor's that we have. So I think that's the part where once they do get their associates, hopefully that has been planned out where they want to go. We also have a few interdisciplinary study degrees where even they're still not too sure what they want to do at the community college, they can just get 60 hours, and it's a little more risky because they may lose some credits at that point, but it still covers a wide swath of things that they want to do, and they'll still get a degree for it, associate degree, that is. So one, make sure that they're successful. I would say about a year, get their feet wet, and then make sure that once they are and they're ready, they know what they want to pursue. That's when they start looking at the different degree plans and then making choice where they want to transfer to.
All
Yeah.
right.
And
Definitely the resources, speaking to their academic advisors, going around and asking questions to the right people. I know oftentimes it's easy to say, well, this friend who's taking this, I'm just going to see what they're doing.
That's what I
You
did.
know,
It was
didn't
limited
work out.
success.
Work
It was
out.
very limited success.
And
Yeah.
so going to the right places, these resources are set up for them, just speaking to their advisor, asking questions, and it's also giving them that opportunity to speak with professionals on campus and kind of build that skill as well. And to make sure that they fully understand things and to not be afraid to say, hey, I don't really get this. What should I be doing next? And then from there, use those, develop that kind of critical thinking, right? Looking at that and saying, okay, if my degree plan is arranged in this way, what do I think I should be taking next? Just based on course sequencing, right? And then
Right.
going in and getting that confirmed.
Right.
So they're already building and they're developing that. So then when they get to wherever they're going next, they get to the university, let's say, they're able to look at those degree plans and have a greater understanding of what it means.
Right.
Because sometimes it can just look so foreign. It can look very different. They say, I've never seen something that looks like this. My high school counselor would just sign me up for classes. That's not happening here. And it
They
can be a
have
real
to-
culture shock for them.
You
And they're
know-
very much accustomed to that from high school. They hand them their schedule,
Yeah.
and they expect that sometimes. And navigating the bureaucracy is an important step to
Yeah.
finishing your university or college degree. Definitely.
It can be tricky, but all the resources are present. It's just about leveraging them and tapping in and raising your hand and saying, hey, I'm here. Can somebody help me?
And
There's
you-
always somebody to help.
Yeah, and I guess my objective, my goal is to prevent the student who is, for one, like I said, from the scholarship side, I review transcripts, thousands of them, and community colleges, and I'm looking like, how does this person have 120 hours at a community college? Like, what's happening? What are you doing? I'm like, I just want to call this student and tell them, like, they could have already finished a 4-year degree with those hours. What's happening? To make sure that there is guidance, and it's not that the resources aren't available, it's that they don't want to ask the questions or they haven't figured out what they want yet, right? So this is 60 hours and then another 60 hours, and right, we've utilized all the financial resources and that kind of thing. So
Yes, that's a very important point. The financial aid is a big one. They will run out of financial aid. And so it's important to know what you want to get it. If you want to get one of the bachelors, go finish one of those. I think sometimes we create an environment that's too welcoming and students, they love
don't
us too
wanna
much.
leave, they love it. Yeah. And it also need to mention that this transfer dynamic is not just community college to university, right? It's university to
Right.
university too,
Yes.
because I also run into students, like, even if they went away to school and they want to move back and their credits don't transfer and they have to start over. And so parents should be aware that in any transfer situation, there's risk.
Yeah.
You got to plan. You have to plan.
Right.
But-
And that there could be some common ground. Like, not all hope is lost if you went to an institution outside of the area. There's a good chance that a lot of what you did take successfully will transfer in, correct?
And it really depends on a lot of times. So there's courses will transfer in, but we want to remember, are they going to apply to the program of study
Right.
that I'm
Right.
following? And so that's also tricky. Sometimes you might take 45 credits and they transfer over, but because you're
Right.
studying something else, only 21 of those
Are
20
applicable
Right. Well, I
towards
mean,
that
yeah.
degree plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
for our son Lucas, he transferred I think 32 hours, but only I want to say 24 actually applied to
to
his
what he was
program.
studying.
The rest were
Free
electives or
yeah.
their credits, but they're not going to count towards the classes he
Yeah.
needs to take.
You
So
want to think about what's going to get you to progress toward
right.
timely graduation.
And we discussed that in probably another episode of when you're looking at your dual classes in high school and what is exactly needed at the
Yes.
university you're trying to go to not waste, just to make sure you're utilizing your resources properly.
Yeah.
So that you're using your
Absolutely.
time.
I think to keep in mind, in it's sometimes called the basics, but we call it the core. And
Yes.
the core, the 45 credit hours, that one should transfer over to the institution. And then so if you're unsure how the program that you want to go to, so your son at Baylor business, right? So that one, if he had taken all the core should have transferred over, or they're more likely to accept the core as a whole and give
Mhm.
45 credits. Now, and then that's where you don't take your field of study or your program specific courses yet. So that's another thing to keep in mind is getting that core complete and then transferring after that. So there's basically like the 1 year, and then there's the getting core complete, because those are more likely to transfer over as a block.
Yeah.
And then once you know that you do want to do business or psychology, don't take those courses at the college yet. If you know you want to transfer somewhere else, that they might accept it in the program, like Peter-James is saying.
Yep. So they didn't take his music appreciation
Oh,
class.
they
Yeah.
have their own.
They have their own kind of things that they did. And again, they didn't accept he took college algebra and calculus, I think. And they were like elective and because they needed business calculus for
They start with their own.
For the
Yeah,
elective.
for their elective.
Yeah.
So an
Common.
elective in
Yeah.
calculus, that's exciting.
If students are aware prior or know where to go
Mm.
and find this information, then they can say, hey, I should take this. I should take this course instead because I'm going to plan for using this at that
Which is a good point, which is why he took calculus to start with, because our daughter was 5 years older than him and she was required to take calculus as her first math. So we thought we were really doing something great, letting him
Yeah.
get that done. But because he's in the business program, she was not. She was in a different field of study. He needed to be business calculus. And we didn't have the foresight to think of that as parents, which is another reason why we're doing this.
Why we're here.
Why we're here
yes.
is to just have these from the mistakes of those before
Yeah.
and the expertise of professionals, just trying to get that information out. So just make sure you're checking degree plans, make sure you're consulting with an advisor,
Advisors.
and making sure that you're utilizing the resources to successfully guide your kids, and don't push them too soon, and don't let them be complacent either.
Yeah.
A little of everything.
A steady hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goldilocks.
Yes. Anything else we missed that you wanted to mention about your respective institution or programs?
Just that there are so many things that people can study and do nowadays. And I think sometimes we think about it from the perspective of these are the things I know. And then students get to the community college, the university, wherever,
Yeah.
college.
Exposure
and
to other.
they find so many other things that they didn't realize existed. And so looking at websites like Bureau of Labor Statistics, that's helpful. Doing some career exploration or some personality types of inventories,
Mhm.
that's also helpful. And students who are 15, 16, 17 can do that and just say, but it'll give you some results, and that doesn't mean this is what you have to major in.
Right.
But at least it'll steer them into understanding their skills a little bit better.
I get that. I have a lot of interests, so I wish I'd known that when I was younger, and I would have looked at all the different things that I could be good at.
Yeah.
And I like what I'm doing now. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy it very much, but I see other people's jobs, and I think sometimes I didn't even know that job existed.
Yeah.
That's a real
Right.
job.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Yeah.
and I always use the example when I graduated from high school, the last thing I ever thought I wanted to be was an executive director of a nonprofit. I didn't even know what a nonprofit was
Yes.
at 18. So to even think of, I want to run a nonprofit, like it never would have occurred to me, right? It's just the way the world takes you, right? Life takes you through these progressions. But in college, I went to school to be an architect initially. So I really transitioned away from that. But it's just what college offers you, or community college offers you, is the exploration of these things, right? And going through college too, we're talking about our son going into a business program. He's doing finance and investments. And he's specifically now that he's in classes, I really like data analytics. I really like this part of it. And yeah, like his dad is a database administrator, so it's not very far fetched, but I don't want to do what dad does. I'm like, no, they're just like, you just have the brain for that, or you enjoy it. Yeah, like, can you see yourself doing this every day? Because that's a different thing too. You think you're going to want to do one thing, and then you're like, can I see myself doing this every single day, for years,
Right. I was going to
forever.
be a band director.
Yeah.
I was. I was a music major. I was in university jazz. I did symphony and all that fun stuff. And I brought my little trumpet to the band hall at Southwest Texas. And I looked around after I'd been living in Austin for a while, and I saw all the people there. And I was like, oh man, these are not my people. They used to be. They very much were, but they weren't anymore. And I marched right up to the building at the top of the hill with my little trumpet and asked to change my major to computer science.
So yeah, and any change I think comes with obstacles. So yeah, the change in majors, the change in universities and institutions and all that, I think is something you have to plan and utilize expertise advice. So he did not go visit any advisor. I could tell you that much.
I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't know.
We didn't even know advisors existed.
It can be so difficult for parents, and even from here in the Rio Grande Valley, some parents might say, I didn't know that there was an advisor. I didn't know that there was a this or there was a that, and to try to keep their student on track. And it's just parents knowing and students knowing that they're not alone and that these resources are on campus, just reaching out somewhere, just raising your hand and saying me.
And I think we have in our areas, you all know, a lot of first generation college students, so they don't have the parents to guide them to do that. But even parents who are educated, it's so different now. It is when we went, we've brought this up before, when I went to college the first time, we went into the gym and literally filled out the classes we're going to take on a piece of paper at each table to table. That's just not what happens anymore.
Heard of those.
Yeah, arena registration.
Yeah, the arena registration. Or you pick up the phone and enter the number because you had all the codes, and then you entered it incorrectly and you have to hang up and you're like, oh, I messed that up. It was so frustrating, right? But now you have online registration. Now you can do all kinds of things. And I think, but that also may provide a hindrance because students think all the information is available to them and they don't need to go talk to somebody. So I think that also makes a difference. We had to go in person, and the person at the table is like, no, you need this signature before you're going to come over here and get into this class.
Yep.
And it wasn't necessarily an advisor, but somebody making sure you had the prereqs to get into the class. So I think, now the system does it for you. Like, nope, you're not getting in. Nope, you're not getting in. But I think one of the things of information online stuff is that, as we were talking about before, students think, can they find this on their own and get the answers on their own without properly speaking to an advisor or an expert?
We try to make that available and accessible for the students that can navigate it, because some of them can. And I think UTRGV uses DegreeWorks too, right?
DegreeWorks.
So the STC uses the same platform for degree planning as UTRGV does. So that should simplify things. Once they find one, they should be able to read the other one pretty easily and then compare what the degree plans look like and how they plan their degree. And that's, again, what the transfer counselors can do at their respective institutions too. Even though they're enrolled at both, they can take their degree plan and then show how it looks in both of those platforms. And it's available to students. They can log into their accounts and see their degree plan, see the progress they made and stuff like that.
Is that the one that has a little dashboard and a progress meter as far as how far along you are in any particular? I've seen guys in the office pull their stuff up.
Yeah, the first thing will show is the degree progress. And then if you click on it, it'll list the actual courses and what's for core and basics. And
I've seen that.
Studying.
I've seen that. That's neat.
The other thing I want to mention about the actual professions and Isaac's in database management and computers, so he knows how fast things are changing. And
Quickly.
Talking about business analytics, that wasn't an area. And I liked research. I like psychology, the content, but I didn't want to counsel people. I didn't like talking to people about their problems, and it may edit that out. I don't know. I think I keep it in. But I like the research component, right? And I didn't know that psychology had such a huge research component, but I realized there's two factions of psychology. There's the counseling type, and then there's the straight cold research.
Mm-hmm.
I like that part. And coincidentally, one of my first jobs was a graduate research assistant at UTRGV. And that started my path towards research, but it's something that I would not have known I wanted, but I picked up the skills. And that's an area where I didn't think I had the skills, much like what you're saying about your son. I didn't think I had the skills, but once I did, I was like, oh, I love this. And then more so now, I'm looking for people because I'm, older. I'm not a college student anymore, but definitely not an entering freshman. But
We don't have to say ages.
that's what I want so I don't understand what's out there anymore. And so when I'm looking for people now to hire in my department, I'm looking for people that are getting those degrees so that they can teach me what I need to know. And I'm relying on the skill set that the universities are teaching them. So that's all to say, like you said, find what you're good at and find something that you're interested in, and then talk to your faculty about what job opportunities there are for that particular field. Because I never thought I'd be a research analyst or a dean of accreditation and research and all that.
Yeah. I never thought I'd run a nonprofit or go get a master's in public administration. I didn't even know what that was. So now I know because I know the skills, and you look for a master's degree that has all the things you need for your career. At least that's what I did. And that's how I came across it. And I think it's changed now. I got it at UTPA, but I think it's something else now. It's not public administration. Yeah. But I'm like, yes, this is what I need. I need to know how to run a nonprofit. That's what I need. This is the master's that I need. But, going from high school to that, I would never have made that track. So
no, I was going to be an astronaut rock star, but you can't find work as an astronaut rock star around here. Not anymore.
He has a lot of interests. He was good. Yeah, he has a lot of interests. So
I love how you mentioned talking to faculty, because it can be intimidating at first for some students because they're not used to it.
Very much.
But talking to them and saying, how did you get here? What options are available for me? That's also super
if there's any takeaway from this entire endeavor that we're talking about here, that is a huge one, is getting a student to talk to the faculty. Introduce yourself. Get to know who your advisors are. And it may change, but be comfortable going up to a stranger and asking for help. My name is Isaac. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with this. And it's okay not to know, because you will know after they tell you. So I think some kids, they feel like they have the information of the entire planet at their fingertips. And if they don't know something, they feel bad about themselves. Like, I should know this. It's got to be somewhere on my phone. And that not everything works that way. And that skill of being able to go up to somebody is huge.
And that is important. A huge thing as parents that we preach to our kids. Go advocate for yourself, right? Since they were little, do you want me to speak to your teacher, or can you go speak to your teacher and you do it? And if it doesn't work, then I'll go, right? I'm the backup, but you advocate for yourself. And like I said, to this day, to college, our son was having an issue with one of his professors. I'm going to email the dean right now. And just like, that's his mentality now, which is, to me, I'm like, okay, let's just calm down.
If we need to, but for now,
but
de-escalate.
Let's handle this. But he doesn't mind advocating for himself. And that's, I think, part of the issue that every parent should encourage their child to be able to do that, to go up to somebody and just say, this is what I need. How do I get there? And this is what I don't know. Can you tell me? Those are very important things.
Can you throw in this also? This is unpopular, I know, but checking your email, checking your university, your college email.
Yeah.
Well,
I've seen students miss out on really great scholarships because they didn't check their email and confirm
like
they
said,
wanted it.
The scholarship side, that after the deadline, that's the main thing that people say. I just saw my email that I qualified for this. Yes, but the deadline passed last week. And so I struggle with it. I just found out about the scholarship. I just saw my email. That is a big thing. Because like I said, we partner with the schools, and they market directly to the students who qualify. This is the population that meets all the criteria for your scholarship. And they send email blasts, but they don't check their email. And then that's the biggest thing. I just found out that I qualify for this. I just found out. And unfortunately, we don't make exceptions like that. We just...
Someone in the previous podcast, I think it was Paige Cisneros, she recommended creating an email in high school that's just going to be used for contacting universities and applications and things of that nature. That one is independent and doesn't have a lot of stuff in it. And
so when stuff comes in, it pertains to
that, and only that.
At that point in time in high school, as they get toward their senior year, creating a new email is sometimes a good idea. So they're not applying to colleges with
the ones they chose in junior high.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
That is the one thing I end all my presentations to juniors and seniors.
Your actual name. Or something close to it.
Create an email. And they, what they thought was cute when they created it in 7th grade is not appropriate. And Hot Guy 57 and
Yahoo.com.
Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
All kinds of emails I've seen. But
Yes.
that's the first thing I'm like, is that their email? And if they're using that for admissions or scholarships, it's the first thing they know about you. And it does matter. So, yes, emails. Check your emails.
Check
and
your email.
Create a good one.
No, I love fries. We all love fries.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Who
It
doesn't?
doesn't need to be in our
Yes.
email address.
Yes. Well, thank you, gentlemen, very much for your time. It was nice speaking with you and great information.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.